Hello, everyone, and welcome back to GodSaw's Turnbuckle. And this time we're going to be doing something a little bit different here. Just going to kind of give my thoughts and just my opinions on a particular thing that have been going on around, at least wrestling internet and just in general. And I've also had a few days to kind of think about this a little bit more and let it simmer in my brain. And I feel like a lot of people probably know where I'm going with this. It's about AEW All Out. And the question being, did they go too far with what they did on All Out? And I'm not necessarily talking about the entire show in general, just two particular aspects of it. One being the fact that they did kind of a suffocation spot with Bryan Danielson and Moxley, where Claudio and Pac and Moxley had turned on Bryan Danielson after his match with Jack Perry, and well, saving him from Christian Cage cashing in his title shot with that as well. And it's an area where it's one of those things. I guess I'm trying to find the proper words for this. It's one of those areas where I don't necessarily think wrestling companies go too far when they do something, because I guess I gauge it on an aspect of what kind of story are they telling here. You imagine when they're coming up with a spot like this, whether they use fire or they do something with the plastic bag, or or even talking about what they did in the main event as well of that show, which I'll get to in a little bit. It's one of those areas of you imagine they would know how to go ahead and do something like that safely and not put the other person in danger at least as much as possible. There's always that aspect of trust between the wrestlers and everything like that. So whenever I watch things like that, I kind of do get that area of like, okay, what kind of story are they telling? Where is this going? Is it a very dark spot with with Moxley putting a plastic bag over Bryan Danielson's head and basically make it seem like he's going to be suffocating the guy? Yeah, it's very dark, but also that's kind of Mox's character to a certain degree. At least it hasn't. I know it hasn't been that way for a while, but it's kind of where they went with everything when he was starting out in AEW. He kind of pushed those limits and pushed the boundaries of what you could do. I mean, think about his one of his first pay-per-view matches was a lights out match with Joey Janela, and then they kind of pushed that envelope as well with his first match with Kenny Omega, which turned into a lights out match as well. And it's just, where are they going to be going with this? Is what kind of match is it going to lead to? You have the whole aspect with Darby Allin, everything like that. Now, do I feel like they went too far with this? Not necessarily, because again, I feel like those performers would be able to trust each other to do the spot properly and not put the other one in danger. And that's just kind of how I feel with it. Again, is it dark? Absolutely. Did it convey an emotion for me as like, oh my God, what are they doing here? Yeah, they did. I think that was part of their story intention for that particular spot after the Danielson Perry match. So it's, again, I don't feel like they went too far with it. At least on my own personal opinion with this. I know some other people probably feel like, yeah, that is going too far. I mean, that's perfectly fine for them to have that opinion for something like that as well, because everybody's going to have their own little gauge of what's too far. And it's like, for me, a lot of things are always on the table when in terms of going towards a wrestling storyline. That's just how I feel on that one. And honestly, it's the same way I feel about the main event as well. It's one of those things where the aspect of that story, it was a lights out match inside of a steel cage. Anything goes, and like they even they did a very good job of having that little touch in there where, yes, the referee had a referee shirt on, but he had nothing. It had no AEW patches, no nothing. So they played up to that. That was a nice little touch for that one as well. But the aspect of that story, of that match, was to convey an emotion that makes you go like, "Oh my God, what am I watching?" And again, because of the story beats of, you could say, at least in terms of storyline and characters, like Swerve went way too far way back when he did his home invasion of Hangman's house. And then, of course, Hangman goes too far in terms of burning down Swerve's childhood home. And they actually had that little bit in there in that story, and it even conveyed more into that story of the match by having the piece of like the house there. Obviously, in like full kayfabe sense of this, but a burnt piece of that of the house, where you see the emotion from Swerve is like he's using this as a weapon, but he's also crying while doing it because of the memories of that. And they played it off extremely well in this match. I think a lot of people, when they're talking about potentially going too far in that one, towards the end, they did use the needle, where I imagine he was numbing up, or they're conveying is either he was numbing up or putting like a sleeping drug inside a Swerve. I don't necessarily know. Now, something like that with a needle, I'm not going to say it's them going too far, but in terms of like an emotion that you're going to get from me, it's gonna get that emotion of like, oh, and they're using a needle, because I'm like a very bad around needles, even to the point of passing out around them. And I can actually say that it was like, oh, okay. It's like it goes this far with these guys. And then the unprotected chair shot at the end, which I imagine was a very gimmicked chair. And I know with everything with head injuries and everything to go along with that, it's hard to really want to see those again. And I honestly, like I said, I felt like the emotion that they were trying to gauge for in that match is like, again, oh my God, what am I watching? I might need to turn away, type thing inside of that. And they conveyed that emotion quite well inside of the match itself. Even to the point that I would probably say Swerve and Hangman in that lights out cage match might be my match of the year, because they made you feel like, oh, I don't think we should be watching this type feeling. It's because that's the type of match a lights out match probably should be like. And it's obviously it's going to be, completely different from one person to another. I'm just giving my own personal thoughts about this. And it's a thing where it's like, do I feel like they went too far? No, because again, I feel like those guys would be professional enough to, keep the other one as safe as possible. And I mean, if you even think about like chair shots to the head way back in the day, you used to get multiple in a match at any given time. And in this particular case, yes, it was a very hard swung shot, but it was one. And for the aspect of the story, you kind of maybe you give a little bit of leeway on it. At least that's how I feel. It's not like you feel like Hangman's taking a liberty with Swerve in this case. It's not like, think about the I Quit match with The Rock and Mankind and Mick Foley, where Rock is kind of just waylaying unprotected chair shots, 13 of them, to Mick Foley's head. I feel like that's a little bit different from what they conveyed here. It was the knockout blow of the match. And like I said, I don't feel like they went too far with it. Again, it's like, can anything happen in there, and could that cause a massive injury? Absolutely, it could. And so could a lot of other moves in the most basic moves in general. So my own personal thought process again is I feel like those guys would probably have enough trust in each other to know to protect them as much as possible. I'm again imagine that chair was gimmicked to all areas to make sure it didn't um cause a bunch of damage. I imagine it possibly still could have because it is still an unprotected chair shot to the head with that. And I will give them a little bit of credit of how they decided to shoot that as well, because it's like you had an in-ring shot there, and then they panned to a wide shot, like right at the last second. So it was like all you really saw, or like the only thing you really got was like the sound of it. Um, but yeah, it's just something that I saw a lot of discourse on. Kind of wanted to give my thoughts on it as well. I'm sure some people who would end up watching this may not have the same thought process as me, which is completely fine, by the way. But also it's like I said, do I feel like they went too far? No. But then again, maybe that's me being desensitized to a lot of things that I've seen in wrestling as well. Because I feel like they've gone much further than what we saw at AEW's All Out. So that's pretty much everything I have for that. Feel free, feel free to leave a comment down in the comment section of your own thoughts on the situation. Or I won't say situation, but the whole your whole thoughts on what happened at AEW All Out. Either way, to go along with it. And with that being said, I hope you all take care, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great rest of your day.